My name is Grace. I am 28 years old. For my entire life, I saved myself for one person, for one moment, my wedding night. I dreamed it would be the most beautiful night of my life. But when that night came, my new husband looked at me with cold eyes. He slept in a different room, and the next morning, he asked for a divorce. What I didn't know was that his cruelty was hiding a painful secret. Before I met Samuel, my life was simple and quiet. I worked in a plant nursery. I loved the smell of wet earth and the gentle silence of the greenhouses. I spent my days with flowers, and I learned from them. I learned about patience. I learned that the most beautiful things need time to grow. I believed love was the same way. Because of my family's teachings, I made a choice. I decided to wait for marriage. This choice was a quiet garden inside my heart. I thought this was my special gift, the purest flower I could give to my future husband. I did not talk about it much. It was a promise I made to myself. One cool afternoon, a man walked into the nursery. He was tall and had dark hair. He was a history teacher, he told me. His name was Samuel. He was not like other men. He did not talk much. He just looked at the flowers with a deep sadness in his eyes. I felt a strange connection to his quietness. We started talking. He came back to the nursery every week. Our conversations were slow and gentle, like a growing plant. One day, I felt brave. I told him about my belief. My voice was a little shaky. I told him that I was waiting. I expected him to smile, or maybe even laugh. Many people did. But Samuel did not laugh. He looked at me for a long moment. His sad eyes were not sad anymore. They were full of respect. He nodded slowly and said, "That requires a strong heart, Grace." When he said that, I felt my own heart beat fast. It was like the sun coming out from behind a cloud. He did not see a strange girl with old-fashioned ideas. He saw strength. I fell in love with his quiet understanding. I thought, he sees me. He sees the real me. In that moment, I truly believed my waiting was over. Our time together was mostly quiet and calm, but sometimes a shadow would pass over Samuel's face. One sunny afternoon, we were walking in the park. I was happy. I talked about our future. I imagined a small house with a big garden filled with the laughter of children. Suddenly, Samuel stopped walking. He looked down at the path. His smile was gone. "Life is not always a happy story, Grace," he said. His voice was flat and empty. I felt a strange coldness from him, like a winter wind on a summer day. I didn't know what to say. Then, just as quickly, the shadow passed. He looked at me, and his eyes softened. "I'm sorry," he said. "I'm just tired." I wanted to believe him. The next day, he surprised me at work with a single white rose. "For your pure heart," the small card said. For a moment, I thought everything was fine. I told myself that he was just a serious man, a deep thinker. His moods were a part of his thoughtful nature. A few months later, we were in the quiet city library. He took my hand. His touch was cool. "Grace," he began, "you are a good woman. I believe we can build a stable life together. I will be a responsible husband. Will you marry me?" He proposed in the library. It was very formal. He talked about responsibility and stability, not about passion or a great love. A part of my heart wanted more. It wanted poetry and fire. But my mind whispered, this is what a good man is like. Stable, serious, safe. So I said yes. The wedding preparations were simple. Samuel let me choose everything. The flowers, the music, the simple white dress. It felt peaceful. I thought his quietness was a sign of his complete trust in me. He was giving me the wedding of my dreams. The day came. I stood across from him in the small church. He looked handsome in his dark suit, but when he put the ring on my finger, our eyes met. I expected to see happiness. I expected to see love. Instead, I saw a deep, profound sadness. It was there for just a second, a flicker of pain in his dark eyes. Then it was gone, but it scared me. I felt a shiver run down my spine. I didn't know that sadness was not about me. It was about his past. That night, back in our small new house, my heart was beating fast. This was the moment I had waited for my entire life. I changed into a simple white nightgown I had kept for years. I felt shy, but also incredibly happy. I walked out of the bedroom. Samuel was standing by the window. He turned and looked at me, but his eyes held no desire. There was no love. I saw something else in them. It looked like pity, and under the pity, there was a quiet anger. "Are you sure this is the life you want, Grace?" he asked. His voice was cold. "To live by someone else's rules? To believe in old, empty promises?" I didn't understand. "What do you mean?" I whispered. He didn't answer. He just shook his head. He walked to the closet, took out a pillow and a blanket, and went to the living room. I heard the soft sound of the couch as he lay down. I stood alone in the quiet room. My dream, my beautiful, perfect dream, was broken. I felt a deep ache in my chest. I had given him the most precious gift I had, and he had refused it. The night was long and silent. I did not sleep. The next morning, I found him sitting at the kitchen table. He looked like he hadn't slept either. He did not look at me. He just stared into his empty coffee cup. "I want a divorce," he said. The words were quiet, but they hit me like a physical blow. "I can't do this. You are not what I want. Your obedience, your purity, it suffocates me." My heart did not break. It felt like it had turned to stone. I could not cry. I felt completely empty. I looked at the man I had married just yesterday. He was a stranger. I nodded slowly. "Okay," I said. My voice was just a rough whisper. I stood up and walked to the bedroom to pack my small suitcase. He did not stop me. He just sat there, silent. His books were everywhere. He was a history teacher, after all. In his small study, I gathered my few things. My hands were clumsy. I knocked over a tall stack of books from a shelf. They fell to the floor with a heavy thud. As I picked them up, I saw a small, old book with a worn leather cover. It was tucked between two larger volumes. It was not a history book. It was a diary. I don't know why, but I opened it. The handwriting was delicate and old-fashioned. It was a woman's writing. Curiosity was a stronger feeling than my sadness. I read the first line. My breath caught in my throat. May 10th. Today, my husband told me again that a good wife must be silent and obedient. This silence is killing me from the inside. I sat down on the floor, forgetting my suitcase, forgetting everything. I kept reading. I read about a young woman who loved to paint, but her husband told her it was a sin. I read about a mother who was not allowed to hug her own son when he cried, because her husband said it would make the boy weak. I read about years of quiet loneliness, of a soul slowly dying under the name of purity and faith. A warm tear fell onto the old paper, then another. I held the diary close to my chest, and a great sob shook my whole body. I was not crying for myself anymore. I was crying for a woman I had never met. And I was crying for the little boy who had to watch his mother fade away. I was crying for Samuel. I heard a soft gasp from the doorway. I looked up. Samuel was standing there. His face was pale, like paper. He stared at the diary in my hands. I thought he would be angry. I thought he would shout. but he did nothing. The strength seemed to leave his body. He slowly slid down the wall and sat on the floor across from me. He buried his face in his hands. His shoulders began to shake. It was a silent, terrible kind of crying. The quiet history teacher, the serious, stable man, was completely broken. I sat there, holding his mother's diary, and I watched my husband cry. The silence in the room was heavy with unspoken pain. After a long time, he finally looked up. His eyes were red and full of a pain so deep I could feel it in my own chest. I was trying to protect you, he whispered. His voice was rough and broken. I saw my mother in you. I saw the beginning of the same sad story. Your quiet obedience, your pure beliefs, they scared me. I didn't want you to end up like her, getting a divorce. It was the only way I could think of to set you free. He shook his head, his eyes filled with regret. But I was wrong, so wrong. I did not pack my bags. I did not leave. I just sat there with him on the floor, in the quiet room, until the sun went down. When he finally calmed down, he started to talk, and for the first time, he really talked to me. He told me everything. He told me about his father, a cold man who used religion as a weapon. He told me about his mother, a gentle soul who loved art but was forced to give it up. He told me about the silence in their house, a silence so heavy it felt like a sickness. He told me that, after his mother passed away, he found her diary, and on that day, he made a promise to himself. He promised he would never let another woman suffer in silence. He finally looked at me, his eyes filled with a deep, honest regret. I was so blind, he said. I was so trapped in my own history that I couldn't see you, the real you, Grace. You are not like her. You have a quietness, but it is not weakness. It is strength. And I hurt you terribly. I am so sorry. That night, we did not sleep. We just talked. I told him about my own quiet life, about my own simple beliefs. He was not the distant history teacher anymore. He was a wounded boy. And I was not a naive little girl. I was the only person in the world who now understood his pain. We did not get a divorce. We tore up the papers. We decided to start again, not from our wedding day, but from that moment, on the floor of his study. Our real marriage did not begin in a church. It began with tears and truth. Weeks passed. Life was different. It was quiet, but it was a new kind of quiet. It was filled with understanding. We learned to talk. We learned to listen. We learned to see the scars that we both carried. One Sunday, he took me to a quiet cemetery outside of town. We stood before a simple headstone. Elizabeth, it read, his mother. We placed the white roses I had brought on the soft grass. Samuel held my hand. His grip was warm and strong. My mother would have loved you, he said, his voice soft. She would have loved your strong heart. That night, we were truly husband and wife for the first time. The room was dark and quiet, but there were no more secrets between us. There were no more ghosts. I learned that night that true intimacy is not about being untouched. It is about being seen, completely seen. Our love was not built on perfect promises or old traditions. It was built on healed wounds. It was built on the courage to love someone, not in spite of their broken pieces, but because of them. And I knew, in that moment, that this was the purest love of all. I learned that we all carry invisible scars from the past. Sometimes, people hurt us not because they are evil, but because they are trapped in their own pain. They build walls to protect themselves. But those same walls also keep love out. True love is not about finding someone perfect and unbroken. It's about having the courage to look past the walls, to understand the scars, and to love the person hiding behind them. We often see these stories as just tales, but they are mirrors reflecting our own lives in the modern world. Many of us enter relationships carrying baggage from our past families or previous heartbreaks. This story teaches a profound lesson about communication and vulnerability. Samuel's mistake was not his fear, but his silence. He built a wall around his pain instead of sharing it. In our relationships, we must learn that being vulnerable is not a weakness. It's an invitation for true connection. Secondly, it shows that empathy can be more powerful than judgment. Grace could have left in anger, and she would have been justified. Instead, she chose to understand, and that choice healed them both. Don't let your past traumas dictate your future actions. Seek to understand your partner's history and have the courage to share your own. True intimacy isn't about physical purity. It's about emotional honesty. When you can sit with someone in their darkest moments and offer them not judgment, but understanding, you create a bond that is truly unbreakable. That is a lesson worth learning. After listening to this story, what are you thinking about? What do you think about love and understanding? Please comment below. Let's share together and practice our English. If you believe in the power of healing and second chances, you can also comment yes. Please subscribe to Peak English Stories to learn English through stories every day. Thank you for your kindness.